It has been a steady stream of gut-wrenching allegations since day one of the Diddy trial, but today the testimony took things to a whole new level. Another one of Diddy's many assistants took the stand, and from the start it was made pretty clear this was no ordinary witness. She was introduced simply as Mia, not her real name, and the judge warned the court, no descriptions, no sketches, which is why you don't see any facial representations, even by a sketch artist. Nothing was to be revealed about this person's identity, and whoever did would face severe consequences by the court. Why such extreme measures? Because the horrors that poured out of Mia today were raw and graphic, including multiple allegations of rape. Mia was like a frightened mouse on the stand all day long, terrified to speak up, staring straight into her lap throughout the day, afraid to make eye contact with anyone, and mostly weeping through all of her answers. Like the other assistants who testified, Mia said she witnessed Diddy's countless violent assaults against his girlfriend and his employee, music artist Cassie Ventura. Mia corroborated a terrifying night, first described on the stand by Diddy and Cassie's stylist, Deontay Nash. She said they jumped on Diddy trying to stop the beating, the relentless, forceful beating he was giving to Cassie. She testified that she saw Diddy slam Cassie's head into a bed frame, causing blood to gush from above her eye. Mia said she thought Diddy was going to kill Cassie. And when Diddy stopped, she said he then ordered Mia and another assistant to call a doctor and lie. Tell them Cassie was drunk and fell. If you're keeping score, that looks a whole lot like obstruction of justice. Mia also described the night that she and Cassie were forbidden by Diddy from leaving their hotel room, even though he planned to stay in for the night in another hotel. But the two decided to sneak out anyway, to a party, one that was being hosted by Prince. I probably would have snuck out too. Mia testified that when Diddy showed up at the party held by Prince, these two girls tried to leave quickly, but that Diddy caught them and threw Cassie to the ground. She says that Prince's security team intervened before anything more serious could happen. Mia claims that Diddy was toxic and violent with her as well. She told the jury that he slammed her head into a wall, that he threw her into a pool, that he threw an ice bucket and a computer at her head, and that he repeatedly slammed her arm in a bathroom door until she thought it was broken. But nothing prepared the court for what Mia said next. Mia alleges that Diddy sexually assaulted her at least 3 different times. Again, Mia is his assistant. At Diddy's 40th birthday party, she testified that Diddy kissed her and then slid his hand up her dress, totally shocking her. Another time, she says he crept into her bedroom while she was asleep and woke him up by being on top of her. She said she froze, didn't know what to do as he forced himself on her. And then once she testified while on the floor of his closet, packing his clothes for his business trip, she says he came into that closet right up to her face with his groin and then forced her to perform oral sex. Mia says she never told anybody or reported the attacks out of fear that she would be physically harmed and out of fear that she had signed a non-disclosure agreement. Again, she's his employee. She also said that Diddy threatened to, quote, tell everybody, including Cassie, that she'd had sex with him. Mia said she thought they would think she'd initiated it. She told the jury, quote, I knew his power and I knew his control over me. I didn't want to lose everything that I had worked so hard for, end quote. The allegations are just despicable. But here's the question. Are they proof of RICO, racketeering, influenced, corrupt organization? If anybody knows, it is my next guest, Maria Cruz Melendez. She's a former federal prosecutor for the Eastern District of New York. She investigated and convicted R. Kelly on, you guessed it, RICO charges. She also prosecuted multiple organized crime cases and secured the conviction of members of La Cosa Nostra. Maria, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you. I can't believe the number of naysayers that, I don't know if you're watching the media coverage and the analysis on the Diddy trial. I'm following it moment to moment, and I see RICO left, right, and center. But so many people who are smart lawyers say, nope, nothing to see here. What do you think?
I think there are a couple of things. I think it's tough to asked the question about whether or not the government has proven RICO, particularly so early on. I know there was a lot of commentary very, very early on. And when you're first getting the victim's statements about things, I think it's very easy to say, well, the victim is just talking about domestic violence or assault issues that are more state law types of issues. However, I think, and you mentioned this in your opening, the fact that Mia has testified to information that she obtained as a person who worked for Sean Combs, which means she was inside of the enterprise that has been charged by the government. And so in that situation, I think she provides powerful evidence that can be used by the government to show that an enterprise existed and that the enterprise was used, including herself, in order to engage in the conduct that's been alleged. One of the other things I would just quickly note as well is that in this case, RICO itself, substantive RICO, hasn't been charged. Racketeering conspiracy is what has been charged. And so what the government needs to show is that Sean Combs agreed with at least one other person to engage in racketeering. And so they don't have to prove specific racketeering acts in the way that you would need to if you would charge substantive racketeering.
Do you see a lot of similarities between the R. Kelly case and the Diddy case? Because everybody wants to compare, this particular case to the mob, and they say there's no similarity between them. What about R. Kelly?
Yeah, there's certainly parallels. You have a high-profile defendant who's alleged to have used his legitimate business and the people around him, his circle of people, whether that's friends, colleagues, but also individuals who specifically worked for him, assistants, runners, security, in order to make sure that he was able to commit the crimes that have been alleged. And I think some of the testimony that has happened this week in particular demonstrates the ways in which that he used individuals at his disposal in order to maintain control over individuals like Cassie Ventura.
Yeah, I keep hearing evidence of coercion, control, fear. I'm also hearing obstruction of justice. I'm hearing bribery. I'm hearing all these predicate acts, right? But still, so many analysts are saying, no, there's no enterprise here. Where do you see the enterprise coming in with Diddy as compared to the enterprise that came in with R. Kelly?
Yeah, the enterprises, I think, are similar as well. Something that people sometimes confuse about racketeering is that they think that the enterprise has to be criminal. With racketeering, that's not the case. You can have a legitimate enterprise. And the question is whether or not that legitimate enterprise, which can be a business, is being used in order to commit the pattern of racketeering that's been charged. And with racketeering enterprises, it can be as informal as a pickup basketball team. So as long as individuals are associated in fact and they're engaging in the pattern of racketeering that's alleged, then you've got an enterprise. And so the fact that Sean Combs has a business that functioned where he had individuals who were at his disposal, and to the extent he used assistants or other individuals who worked for him, who were in his orbit, in his circle, then I think an enterprise can be, and I think we've heard a lot of evidence that shows an enterprise has been proven.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? I think a lot of people also don't know that the feds can use the language knowing or unknowing in terms of committing a crime. So some of these assistants who may have been dispatched to commit a crime, let's just say Uncle Paulie, the testimony that Uncle Paulie took poor Capricorn Clark to a vacant building and threatened that she was going to swim with the fishes in the East River and, told her she had to take lie detector tests for 5 days. Sounds to me like Uncle Paulie should have known that's kidnapping. But even if Uncle Paulie didn't know it was kidnapping, there's the knowing and unknowing aspect of it, isn't there?
Absolutely. Individuals who are members of the enterprise, that label doesn't mean that you yourself know that criminal activity is happening or that you've engaged in criminal activity. It means that you, in particular instances, it means that you yourself have provided some sort of an assistance to the individual who's being charged with racketeering. And so in this situation, you've got Sean Combs using security, using assistance, using anyone who's at his disposal as part of his organization and his business in order to engage in the charged conduct. I think one of the things we heard from Mia that's been reported is that she said at one point she didn't provide information or she didn't tell law enforcement, and that at certain times she didn't say no to Sean Combs because of the way he reacted if she had said no to bringing him a sandwich. And so I think she certainly had very, very strong testimony that suggested that he not only used and coerced Cassie Ventura, but also when it came to his assistants like Mia, also exerted control via humiliation, physical abuse, and other forms, including financial form. I think you mentioned earlier the fact that he threatened her pay during certain instances. And so all of these things have been alleged as the means and methods of the enterprise. And I think that the government is certainly trying to get all this information in order to prove those allegations that have been made in the indictment.
There's also the extortion part, right? I'm going to release sex tapes of you. I'm going to send the sex tapes to your parents, and I'm going to have your parents fired. Like, those are all extortion, too. Hey, I got a question for you. That every piece of information I hear in this case, be it, you know, testimony or photographs, evidence, it makes me hate Sean Combs. Whether he's guilty or not guilty, I personally despise this person just from what I saw him do to Cassie on the hotel video and then admit to it later on social media. And I wonder how powerful that is for jurors, meaning this could be very complicated for jurors to figure out RICO, you know, it could be racketeering and racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking. Do you think they can hate him just enough to say, I don't care what the charge is, I'm voting guilty on something, anything?
Yeah, look, the defense counsel is going to say, likely in their closing, you don't have to like Sean Combs. You don't have to think that he's a good person. But at the end of the day, they're going to argue that this is domestic violence, this is assault, it's not racketeering. But the jury has received, and they will receive, instructions by the court. They have to make their decision not based on emotion, not based on feeling sorry for certain witnesses, or even their hatred, to the extent it comes to that, for the defendant. They have to make their decision based on the evidence that's been presented, and they have to come to a decision beyond a reasonable doubt. Is it possible that jurors could have trouble distinguishing those things? Absolutely, but they've taken an oath, and the hope is always that they stick to that oath when they're deliberating.
Yeah, but you and I have seen our fair share of these cases in these juries, and there's all sorts of jury nullification that goes on. They vote with their gut, right? And their gut oftentimes can be emotional, too. Maria Cruz Melendez, I really hope we can continue talking, because I only got to half of my questions, and I have so many more for you. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.